A young monk once knelt beside a moonlit pond, watching his reflection flicker in ripples he never meant to create. His master told him, the water would already be still if you stopped trying to calm it. And in that moment, he realized the truth we all forget. Sometimes, the harder you try to quiet your mind, the louder it becomes. Before we begin, take a gentle breath and let the world around you soften. The night is already holding you, already inviting you into its quiet river, and all you need to do is step into the flow. You've carried so much today. The weight of choices, the pressure of uncertainty, the thoughts circling like restless birds. But here, in this space, nothing is required. There is no pace you must keep, no perfection to achieve. Only presence. Only the slow unfolding of breath, like a lantern glowing behind your ribs. Feel the body settling, the muscles around the eyes loosening their grip, the jaw letting go, the shoulders sinking as if warm sand is pouring over them, encouraging every knot to melt. A sense of warmth begins to gather at the center of your chest, not forceful or dramatic, just a soft ember, one that has been with you all along. As you breathe, imagine the air entering like cool night wind slipping through a window, touching every corner of the body with calm. Let the breath lengthen. Let the exhale fall like a leaf drifting toward the ground. Nothing hurried, nothing sharp. Just the slow unraveling of tension that has been waiting for this moment. You are safe here. You are held. You are allowed to be exactly as you are. Let the sound of each breath soften the mind, smoothing its edges, easing the inner chatter into a gentle hum. This is the path inward, the path the old monks walked beneath moonlit cloisters, listening to their own hearts with the same reverence they gave to ancient scriptures. Tonight, we walk that path together. Through stories born from Buddhist teachings, through the calmness that comes when we stop resisting the present moment and instead sink into it like warm water. Let yourself drift. Let yourself listen, not with the mind that analyzes, but with the mind that feels, deep, quiet, receptive. In a quiet valley far from any bustling town, a young monk named Horan once lived in a mountain monastery carved into the slope like a sleeping dragon. The monastery wasn't grand or ornate. Its stone walls were weathered, touched by years of wind and rain, and its wooden beams carried the scent of cedar and thyme. Horan loved the mornings most, when the mist curled around the peaks like soft silk and the monastery bells rang with a tone that vibrated through the bones. But in those early days, Horan was troubled. Each night when he tried to sleep, his mind burst open like a storm. Thoughts crashed into one another, doubts echoed, and fears whispered from the edges of his awareness. Even in a place built for stillness, his mind refused to quiet. One evening, unable to bear the chaos any longer, he slipped out of his sleeping quarters and wandered toward the courtyard garden. The stones beneath his feet were cold, smooth in some places, ridged in others, worn by countless footsteps over centuries. A lantern near the walkway flickered with a small, wavering flame. Horan paused beside it, watching the flame bend in the breeze, its light stretching and shrinking like a breathing creature. He rested a hand on the lantern's wooden frame. The wood felt cool, almost damp from the evening fog. Beyond the lantern, the garden waited in silence. Moss-covered stones glowed faintly in the moonlight, and the small koi pond reflected the sky as though it were a second world hidden beneath the surface. Horan stepped closer, feeling the faint crunch of gravel beneath his sandals. The air smelled of pine needles, damp earth, and a hint of camellia blossoms drifting from a nearby bush. He knelt beside the pond, leaning forward enough that his breath made tiny ripples on the water. His reflection wavered. A tired young face, dark circles beneath his eyes, lips pressed tight with frustration. Why, he wondered, could everyone else find peace while his mind ran wild? Why did sleep come like a stranger who refused to cross his threshold? As he stared into the water, an old monk approached quietly. It was Master Senzo, a venerable monk with a presence like a towering cedar, steady, ageless, rooted. Horan had always admired the way Master Senzo walked, each step deliberate and light, as though he were in conversation with the earth itself. The old monk's robes rustled softly in the breeze, the fabric brushing against itself like the wings of a resting crane. Senzo stopped beside the young monk but didn't speak right away. Instead, he lowered himself down slowly, bones creaking faintly, until he was sitting beside Horan. He cupped his hands over his knees, his long fingers relaxed, his eyes gazing at the pond with a familiarity that came from decades of quiet observation. Horan felt his cheeks warm with embarrassment. "Master," he whispered, unable to meet the older monk's gaze. I cannot sleep. My mind is too loud." The sound of night insects filled the brief silence that followed. The chirping was soft and rhythmic, blending into the stillness rather than disturbing it. Senzo's breath came slow and steady, each inhale gentle, each exhale almost invisible. Finally, the master spoke, his voice low and textured, like distant thunder softened by clouds. "Do you see the pond, Horan?" The young monk nodded. "Tell me what you notice." Horan swallowed. He leaned forward slightly, letting his eyes take in the surface. "It's reflecting the moon," he said softly. "But the reflection is blurry, because of the ripples." Senzo nodded. "And what caused the ripples?" "My breath," Horan murmured, feeling a sting of guilt. "I disturbed it." "Ah," Senzo said, the sound carrying a gentle amusement. "You disturbed it by being alive, by breathing, by existing." He picked up a small pebble from the ground and held it between his fingers. Its surface was smooth, cool, shaped by water and time. "Now watch." He placed the stone at the water's edge and let it fall. The pebble touched the surface with a tiny tick sound and disappeared beneath it. Rings expanded outward, shimmering beneath the moonlight, spreading wider and wider until they reached the pond's border and dissolved into stillness. Horan watched, mesmerized. "When the mind is troubled," Senzo said, "it is like this pond. Thoughts fall into it one after another, each one sending ripples across the surface. We believe we must chase the ripples, calm them, force them to disappear. But the pond does not chase anything. It simply waits. And in time, every ripple stills." The old monk's words drifted through Horan's mind like incense smoke, weaving into places he had kept hidden. Senzo scooped a little water with his hand, letting it run between his fingers. The mind will always make ripples. That is its nature. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to stop grabbing each thought with fear. Horan felt something inside him loosen, like a tightly wound cord finally beginning to slacken. Senzo leaned back, his spine straight, his posture unhurried. "Look again," he said. Horan gazed at the pond. The ripples were gone. The water was once more calm, a perfect mirror of moonlight and stars. Stillness does not come from force. Senzo whispered. It comes from allowing. Horan breathed in deeply. The air tasted different now, cooler, softer, faintly sweet with the night's humidity. His shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. He felt his heartbeat slow, each thump deeper, more grounded. The old master rose to his feet, leaning slightly on his walking stick, the wood polished from years of use. "Come back to bed, young one. Tonight, when thoughts arise, imagine them as ripples on this pond. Do not follow them. Do not fear them. Let them widen. Let them fade. Let them pass." Horan stood beside him, noticing the sound of the wind brushing through the tall bamboo near the edge of the garden. The leaves rustled with a soft whisper, as if affirming the master's teaching. Together, they walked back toward the monastery hall, their footsteps moving slowly over the gravel path. Horan felt each step sink gently into the earth, grounding him. Inside his room, he lay down on his mat. He felt the fibers beneath him, rough but familiar, pressing softly against his spine. As he closed his eyes, he pictured the pond, the moon, the ripples widening, dissolving, and with each breath, he felt the inner waters of his mind begin to still. The first ripple faded, then another, and slowly, the young monk drifted toward sleep. Here, we pause for a moment. Let the lesson settle. Let the breath deepen once again, like a tide returning to shore. In the next part, another story waits, ready to guide you even deeper into rest. Breath settles like dust in a sunbeam, drifting downward, softening inside the chest. The body loosens further, sinking into the quiet as though gravity has become kinder. With each inhale, the ribs open like a slow-moving gate, and with each exhale, a little more of the day falls away. A little more room appears inside you. A little more space for peace to enter. And in that widening space, another memory rises from the old monastery, gentle as a leaf spinning through the air. Long before Horan found his calm, another monk struggled in a different way. Her name was Suiha, a middle-aged nun known for her brilliance, sharp mind, quick wit, eyes that sparkled with understanding. She could memorize sutras after hearing them only once, and she understood the subtle teachings of emptiness and interdependence, with clarity that impressed even the elders. People often came to her for answers, trusting her intellect to solve what their hearts could not untangle. But wisdom of the mind is different from wisdom of the breath, and Suiha carried a quiet burden inside her chest. At night, when the monastery halls grew still, she lay awake with her thoughts racing, not chaotic like Horan's, but relentless, analytical, sharp enough to keep her eyes open long after the moon had climbed to its highest point. She would lie on her straw mat, feeling every line of reasoning unfold, every possibility, every what-if, until the silence became too loud to bear. One evening, after the final chanting session, Suiha walked alone through the temple's eastern corridor. The night air had a bite to it. Winter was arriving early that year. A faint mist drifted over the ground, swirling in thin ribbons that caught the lantern glow, turning the courtyard into a dreamlike painting. The tiles beneath her feet felt cold through her sandals, small currents of chill rising into her body. She entered the old library, a wooden structure with doors carved in swirling lotus patterns, now faded with age. When she slid the doors open, the faint scent of sandalwood, dust, and old paper washed over her. Rows of shelves stretched outward, each holding scrolls that had been touched by generations of monks. Candlelight flickered on the small altar by the window, the flame bending as the cold air whispered in through the cracks. Suiha approached a low table near the altar and sat, the wooden floor creaking beneath her weight. Her fingers brushed across a scroll left open earlier that day. The texture was rough in spots, worn smooth in others, like time itself had traced its patterns across the parchment. She felt drawn to read, to think, to solve the unresolved knots inside her mind. But tonight, she couldn't bear the heaviness of her own thoughts. As she sat in the dim light, a presence filled the room. Soft footsteps approached till a thin, elderly nun appeared. Her name was Lady Kohan, respected not for her intellect but for her effortless silence, her ability to sit still in absolute presence, as though the entire world breathed through her without resistance. And now, her hair was streaked with silver, tucked neatly behind her ears, and her face bore deep lines carved by decades of serenity rather than stress. Kohan lowered herself beside Suiha without a word, joints moving slowly like ancient branches bending in the wind. She placed her hands on her lap, palms open, fingers long and elegant. Suiha bowed her head with respect, embarrassed to have been found here so late. Kohan's eyes drifted to the open scroll, then to Suiha's tense shoulders. Finally, in a whisper softer than the rustle of paper, she asked, "Why do you carry so much tonight?" Suiha hesitated, unsure how to express what felt impossible to articulate. "My mind won't rest," she confessed. "I understand the teachings. I know everything is impermanent, that thoughts come and go, that the self is not fixed. But understanding is not the same as sleeping. My mind refuses to stop turning." Kohan's gaze softened. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small wooden box, placing it gently on the table between them. It was old, the lacquer faded, corners chipped. Suiha watched as Kohan opened it with slow care. Inside was a tiny paper lantern, no larger than a cupped palm. Its delicate frame was made of thin bamboo reeds, and the paper was nearly translucent, hand-painted with faint strokes of ink depicting a mountain range. "Light it," Kohan instructed gently. Suiha struck the flint. A brief spark danced, then a small flame flickered to life inside the lantern, glowing just bright enough to illuminate the air around it. The lantern's painted mountains transformed into silhouettes rising and falling like breath. Kohan leaned close. "This lantern," she said softly, "is the mind." Suiha studied the gentle light. "The lantern or the flame?" "Both," Kohan replied. "The lantern is the structure, the teachings, the knowledge, the understanding. But the flame is your attention. When you feed it too much, it grows bright and harsh. When you fear it, you cup your hands around it and trap it. But when you simply watch without grasping, it becomes soft again." Suiha felt the words move through her, like the warmth of the lantern's glow. Kohan lifted the box lid slightly and let a draft of cold air move through. The flame danced wildly for a moment, stretching thin, shrinking small, then steadying again. "Thoughts are wind," Kohan whispered. "They come and go. You do not command the wind. You only choose whether you chase it." Suiha closed her eyes. "I've been chasing it," she murmured, "all my life." Kohan placed the box back down and touched the table with a gentle tap of her finger, drawing Suiha's attention to the tiny shadow beneath the lantern. "See the shadow?" she said. "It is always there, yet always changes shape. That is your fear. You do not need to erase it. Only watch it shift." For the first time that night, Suiha exhaled fully. She hadn't realized how shallow her breathing had been. The release felt like silk sliding off her shoulders, leaving her suddenly lighter. The sound of her exhale mingled with the rustling bamboo outside the library window, creating a soft harmony. Kohan reached out and placed a hand lightly over Suiha's heart. Her palm was warm despite the cold air. "Your mind is powerful," she whispered. "But sleep does not belong to power. Sleep belongs to surrender. Suiha stayed in the library long after Kohan left, watching the flames sway gently, feeling the breath inside her chest deepen, expand, soften. Eventually, she extinguished the lantern, closed the box, and returned to her room. That night, she slept before her body even fully settled into her mat. Breath drifts again, slow and wide, like a tide embracing the shore. You may feel your limbs heavier now, as though they are sinking into warm sand. The space around your eyes grows softer, and even the tiny muscles in your fingers begin to release their long-held tension. In the quiet space between inhale and exhale, the heartbeat steadies, and a gentle warmth spreads through the ribs, down the stomach, across the hips. You are not doing anything wrong. You are not behind. You are simply arriving in your own body. And from this calmness, another story moves into view like a lantern approaching through fog. Long ago, in a small fishing village by the sea, there lived an old man named Kenzo, who was known not for his wisdom or strength, but for his kindness. His home was a modest wooden hut, perched near the shoreline, where waves lapped at the sand with a rhythm that soothed even the most restless hearts. The scent of salt water always drifted through his windows, mingling with the warm aroma of barley tea that he brewed each morning. Kenzo had lived many lives in one lifetime. Husband, father, fisherman, wanderer. But now he spent his days repairing nets for the younger fishermen and tending to a tiny shrine dedicated to Kannon, the bodhisattva of compassion. People admired him, but they also pitied him, for Kenzo carried a sorrow he rarely spoke of. His wife had passed many years ago, and his only daughter, Aiko, had moved far away. Estranged after a painful misunderstanding, neither of them had been able to mend. Every night, Kenzo walked to the shoreline and sat on a large driftwood log smoothed by the tides. The sky above him deepened from gold to rose to indigo, stars glittering like seeds scattered across a dark field. The sea breathed steadily, waves rolling in and out, each one brushing foam along the sand like white lace. Kenzo listened to the water, hoping that one day the sound might wash away the ache in his chest. One evening, the weather had turned strangely gentle. The wind carried a warmth unusual for that time of year, and the tide glowed faintly as if the moonlight were shimmering from beneath the surface rather than above. Kenzo sat on his driftwood seat, fingers wrapped around a cup of freshly brewed barley tea. The cup was warm, the clay rough beneath his fingertips, steam rising in slow curls that brushed his face. As he watched the horizon, he spoke aloud, something he rarely did. "Aiko," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I hope you are well. I hope you sleep peacefully." A wave rolled in, then receded, leaving behind a glistening path of wet sand that stretched toward his feet. Kenzo sighed, letting the warmth of the tea seep into his hands, as though he were borrowing comfort from it. Suddenly, he felt someone approaching. Soft footsteps on the sand. He turned, expecting one of the village children, but instead saw a traveling monk in simple gray robes, his head shaved, his face illuminated by the moon. The monk carried a staff decorated with tiny rings that jingled softly with each step, and his presence brought with it the faint scent of cedarwood and mountain wind. "May I?" the monk asked, gesturing to the driftwood. Kenzo nodded. "Of course." They sat in shared silence for a long while, listening to the sea. The monk closed his eyes as though savoring the sound of each wave, letting it wash over him. "You carry a sadness," the monk said gently, without turning. "A heaviness in the chest that does not leave, even in sleep. Kenzo swallowed. He hadn't expected anyone to see through him so quickly. It's nothing important. The monk shook his head. If it follows you into the night, it is important. Kenzo stared at the sea. I have regrets. Things I should have said. Things I should have done differently. I think of them every night. They play in my mind until the moon is high. Sometimes I feel I do not deserve rest. The monk picked up a handful of sand, letting the grains slip slowly between his fingers. The moonlight made them sparkle like tiny stars. Regret, he said slowly, is the mind replaying a story whose ending cannot be changed. Kenzo felt his throat tighten. But compassion, the monk continued, is the heart whispering. Even this pain deserves tenderness. The words sank into Kenzo like warm rain. How do I let go? He asked. The monk turned his palm upward, revealing the last few grains of sand clinging to his skin. You do not let go, he said softly. You let it rest. Kenzo frowned slightly. Rest? The monk nodded. Holding on and letting go both require effort. Resting does not. Let the regret sit beside you like a tired old friend. Let it breathe. Let it soften. When sorrow is given kindness, it becomes quiet. Kenzo's eyes stung. He blinked slowly, feeling moisture gather along his lashes. The monk's gaze turned to the ocean. Speak to your daughter, he said. Even if she cannot hear you tonight, let your heart say what it could not say then. Kenzo hesitated. His breath shook, but the monk's presence felt safe, like a harbor in a storm. So he closed his eyes and spoke, voice trembling. Aiko, I'm sorry. I was stubborn. I was afraid. I should have listened more. I should have held you closer instead of holding my pride. The sea sighed with him. A wave brushed the shore, gentler than before. Kenzo exhaled fully, his chest loosening in a way he hadn't felt in years. For a moment, he felt warmth around him, not from the tea, not from the wind, but from something inside unraveling. When he opened his eyes, the monk was smiling softly. Tonight, he said, when you lie down, imagine sorrow as the tide. It moves in. It moves out. But it always returns to calm. Kenzo nodded, tears glistening on his cheeks. The moon climbed higher. The waves softened. And the monk stood, bowed, and walked away, his staff jingling like distant wind chimes. Kenzo remained on the driftwood long after, listening to the sea breathe. And when he finally returned home, he slept with a gentleness he had not known since his daughter was little. The breath in your own chest now widens, softens, drifts. You may feel a subtle heaviness settling into the legs, a warm drowsiness beginning to bloom behind the eyes. Each inhale feels deeper, smoother, and each exhale leaves the body like a long-held tide finally moving back toward the horizon. Soon, we'll move even deeper into rest, deeper into the stories waiting to cradle you. But not yet. In the next part, the final teaching will rise like dawn, quiet and luminous. Breath drifts quietly now, softer than before, as if the body has learned something ancient from these stories. A loosening, a surrender, the gentle hum of truth settling where tension once lived. The three teachings linger in the air around you. Horan's ripples, Suiha's lantern flame, Kenzo's tide of regret, each one circling you like warm currents in a still lake. Nothing demanding, nothing sharp, only gentle reminders that your mind does not need to be controlled to find peace. It simply needs space to rest. Let the breath fall deeper. Imagine it moving all the way down to the base of the spine, expanding there, opening the belly with a slow, warm release. The exhale leaves the body with a softness that feels like a feather drifting from someone's open palm. Inhale, widening. Exhale, softening. The rhythm becomes quieter, longer, smoother. Thoughts appear, but they no longer startle you. They move like mist curling along a hillside, shifting, fading, revealing the calm landscape beneath. Horan's lesson drifts forward first, barely a whisper. His pond under the moonlight, the still surface reflecting sky and stars only when the ripples stop being chased. The memory folds around you like cool night air. You don't need to silence your thoughts. You don't need to force them to stop. Just let them widen until they become part of the stillness holding you. Let them stretch and dissolve at their own pace. The mind, like water, knows how to return to calm when it is no longer disturbed by resistance. Then Suiha's lantern glows faintly, its small flame flickering in the dark space behind your eyelids. She learned that understanding is not the same as resting, that even wisdom can become loud when it tries too hard to solve what the heart needs only to feel. The lantern's warmth is yours now. The flame is not too bright, not too small, not trapped, not denied. It simply exists, moving with the breath, lighting the quiet corners of your consciousness with gentle clarity. The wind does not need to stop for you to sleep. You only need to stop chasing it. Kenzo's tide comes last, rolling into the heart with a sigh. The shoreline softens beneath your awareness. Regret sits beside you like an old friend finally ready to rest. Nothing to fix tonight. Nothing to repair in this moment. The past loosens its grip when you speak to it with compassion. When sorrow is given room to breathe, it loses its heaviness and becomes something tender, something almost warm. Like the tide, it moves in, moves out, returns to calm. Let all three teachings settle inside you like stones placed gently at the bottom of a quiet stream. Feel their weight grounding you, steadying you, anchoring you. Your breath begins to mirror that deep steadiness, stretching longer, drifting slower, becoming the kind of breath that belongs to someone arriving at the edge of sleep. You feel the muscles behind your neck releasing one by one, like tiny doors easing shut. The shoulders soften, spreading into the mattress. Your arms grow heavy, warm, relaxed. The chest loosens, each breath expanding slightly wider than the one before, filling the ribcage with a soft glow of safety. Even the heartbeat grows quieter, as though it is sinking into a deeper rhythm, a slower tide. The stories become part of your breath now. Ripples fading, candlelight steadying, tides softening. They weave into your inner world, forming a gentle path guiding you downward, down into the quietest chambers of the mind where thought dissolves into spaciousness. There, beneath everything, is the truth the monks always knew. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be held by the night. You are allowed to release the weight you carried alone for so long. You are worthy of peace, without earning it, without proving anything, without fighting. You are enough. Feel those words move through you like warm water, filling the spaces that once felt tight or uncertain. Your breath loosens further, moving in slow waves that mimic the ocean at night. The edges of thought blur. The body grows heavy and light at the same time, as though you are sinking deeper into the surface beneath you, while also floating just above it. The mind begins to shift into that in-between place, the threshold where dreams start to form. In this place, the teachings settle deeper. The pond becomes still. The lantern glows softly. The tide rests at your feet. You are surrounded by the wisdom of stillness, by the safety of breath, by the compassion you have always deserved. Let yourself drift now. Let the stories fade into background warmth. Let the breath widen until it becomes a doorway into sleep. Nothing more needs to happen. Nothing more needs to be done. You are already moving downward, slowly, gently, like a leaf floating toward the forest floor. And as the world grows quieter and your body becomes heavier, you can let yourself slip fully into the softness waiting beneath you. You can rest now. You can rest completely. Let sleep take you like a calm tide, draw you into the deep, warm silence that has been waiting just for you. Fade now, into quiet, into softness, into peace. In our modern lives, we've become experts at disturbing our own inner waters. Not because we are flawed, or weak, or undisciplined, but because we live in a world that has trained us to be in constant reaction. Every notification pulls at our attention. Every comparison nudges us toward self-doubt. Every demand from work, family, or society teaches us that rest must be earned, peace must be justified, and stillness is a luxury reserved for people who have their life together. But ancient Buddhist psychology offers a very different perspective. The mind's turbulence is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of life. The issue is not the presence of thoughts, but the pressure we place upon ourselves to manage, correct, and suppress them. Ironically, this constant effort becomes the very source of our suffering. In the pursuit of peace, we create tension. In the pursuit of clarity, we manufacture confusion. Hustle culture amplifies this. It tells us that every moment must be optimized, every emotion analyzed, every second monetized. But real restoration cannot be hacked or squeezed into productivity frameworks. Stillness is not something you do. It is something you stop interfering with. When we stop wrestling with our minds, the mind reveals what it was always capable of, returning itself to balance. This is not laziness. This is wisdom, allowing the pond to settle, the lantern to glow without forcing its flame, the tide of regret to find its own natural calm. If this sanctuary brought you peace tonight, I invite you to become part of our community here. Every week, we gather in this quiet corner of the internet, just like monks returning to the same courtyard, to rest, breathe, and remember who we are beneath the noise. Your presence strengthens this space more than you know, and I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments below. Which burden are you laying down tonight, and which teaching, ripples, lantern, or tide spoke to your heart the most? Your reflection may be exactly what another tired soul needs to read. If this journey helped you, please like the video, subscribe for more guided wisdom, and let this channel become your nighttime refuge. May your sleep be deep, may your heart be light, and may peace find you gently in the dark tonight.